Y'all like that wheelie pop right there? Hello, everybody. My name is Carlo Valsecchi, and to be honest, I have no idea why I was asked to present myself to you today, but I have to say I feel quite blessed to do so. Now, I don't want to bore you with a story that one has heard in many variations over the past about cancer, illnesses, self-determination, and whatnot. No, I've been asked to simply present myself. Now, if there's something I learned from my 2-time battle with leukemia, having survived a severe deadly lung infection and being paralyzed for unknown reasons, yes, I know it's a lot to take in, but stay with me, is that you're not allowed to be afraid to take a step outside of the bubble and reach. On June 18, 2010, I was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia, also known as AML. Now, for those of you who don't really know too much about AML, here's a quick definition for you. It all starts in the bone marrow. This is the soft inner part of bones that produces blood cells. The bone marrow cells don't mature the way they're supposed to. These immature cells, often called cell blasts, keep building up and crowd out normal cells, which causes a shortage of normal blood cells and blah, 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 blah. Okay, basically, all you need to know is that AML produces abnormal cells. Just 7 months later, I was diagnosed with AML again. However, this time, there was no escaping it. I needed a bone marrow transplantation and radiation therapy. I'll always be extremely thankful for my parents, in particular my mother, for giving birth to twin sisters, allowing one of them to be the perfect match. In general, that any one sibling is a perfect match is 1 out of 4. So there's a 25% chance of me getting the perfect donor, and I did. I'll always be extremely thankful for my sister Isabella giving me her blood. About 4 months after my second round of leukemia, I was put into a medically induced coma because of a lung infection that turned into what is known as acute respiratory distress syndrome, aka ARDS. What is ARDS, you may ask? Well, acute respiratory distress syndrome is the sudden failure of the respiratory system, our breathing system. In ARDS, the lungs' blood vessels leak more fluid than normal into the air sac. This prevents the lungs from filling with air and moving enough oxygen into the bloodstream. The result is that the body's organs don't get enough oxygen and it may shut down. I woke up 2 weeks later not knowing exactly what happened to me, except that I wasn't able to talk because of a tracheal tube that was placed into my throat, and that I was barely able to move my legs. Another 4 months later, I was paralyzed for unknown reasons. All the doctors were able to find out is that there was some kind of growth in my thoracic spine, T1 to T5 to be exact, that was pressing my nerves together, thus basically cutting off the signals from my sternum downwards. What is it that allowed me to keep on fighting and survive? It's a question I ask myself many times. And although a large part of it comes from our sheer innate will to survive, the other comes from your friends and community around you. That inner circle that just keeps growing and growing through the reaching out of your friends, family, and community. I've been told I'm an inspiration to people, and you know what? I feel I am. I've been through hell and back to stay is my motto to inspire. Has it been easy? Absolutely, positively not. In 2012, cancer figures among the leading causes of death worldwide, with accounting for 8.2 million deaths. It is expected that annual cancer cases will rise from 14 million in 2012 to 22 within the next 2 decades. Cancer truly has become a rich word in our modern day society, and it's still rising. Now, when I first got cancer, my whole future that I had planned out of playing basketball, going to school, having kids, getting married, all seemed lost. However, my family was once again there for me, reached out to me, and made me believe that there was hope. And this made me realize one thing: life is never over until it's over. When I went through my battles with cancer, no matter if it was the first cycle or second cycle and so on, I learned one thing. The effect reach can have on us is infinite. Why? Well, because one person tells another and so on about my story. and that somehow they sent their blessings through the heavens grapevines, and it gets returned to you. My Aunt Ella in South Dakota, yes, that is a state in the U.S. for those of you who didn't know, suggested for my mother to try this site called Caring Bridge. Caring Bridge is a nonprofit organization that allows people who are going through cancer to keep a journal and share their story. The immense amount of replies I have received from my friends, family, and people I've never known of elicited that hope to keep on living and pulled me out of the blackness below. Because the truth is, I was trapped in some deep and dark holes during my battles with cancer, and I would be lying to you if I wouldn't say to you that I did almost cut the tie multiple times to throw away my life. I mean, who wouldn't, right? You're 18, 19 years old, and no matter how hard you've been fighting, you've survived many obstacles, which many people unfortunately do not have the same outcome to. The damned disease still creeps its way back into your life, creating huge turmoil, not just for yourself, but for the loved ones around you. It created the great fear of the unknown, and worst of all, doubt. That doubt of survival or death. And let's not forget, there's not much of an easy escape route or detour that you can take that will take you to someplace safe. No. Sadly, in most cases, and this is the truth, it's either live or die. No matter how bad I felt, or whenever I had the sheer belief that this was it, I'm giving up, I knew I could rely on one thing, the power of reach. Sometimes it was my family who was there for me every day, 24/7. Other times it was my friends. And sometimes it was nice to hear that someone who I've never met before or never heard of wished me a quick recovery. It was the language of hope and faith that brought us all together. And it was this power of communicating through language that allowed me to reach out and hold on tight. This whole process of reaching out introduced me to a little thing called life. And I wasn't going to throw that away. Nor was I willing to let the people who believed in me down. I fought because I wanted to reward the people who supported me. And this became my new circle of living. So what does a young guy like me do after he had supposedly beaten leukemia and was trying to find his way into the new world of living? Well, I did a lot of this. But I also did this. But then I also did this. The Zurich International School reached out to me and took me under their wing, giving me the opportunity to attend my senior year here and giving me as much time as I needed to get back into the system of going to school. I worked hard, got into all the universities I applied for, and was able to graduate with an amazing class. The Zurich International School is also allowing me to become a qualified teaching assistant, giving me the opportunity to gain experience in this professional field as I will be working towards a teaching degree. I'm having the amazing opportunity to work with a wonderful teaching staff and amazing children who attend the school. I love being able to contribute to their learning and supporting them, giving them the opportunity to see that a person like me who is in a wheelchair can still obtain a similar life to that of a normal disabled person. I'm extremely pleased to have this chance to expose the children with a lesson that they can take with them for the rest of their lives. I'll also be extremely thankful for the Zurich International School for reaching out to me and taking me under their wing. On December 26, 2011, I was put into a medically induced coma because I was no longer able to support my body with enough oxygen. A lung infection known as pneumonia turned into acute respiratory distress syndrome, an infection that kills up to 30% of its victims. Yet somehow, I still managed to survive. I guess my inner self was telling me that my life still had meaning, that I to this day still haven't quite figured out. When I woke up, I wasn't able to talk because of a machine that was pumping air in through my tracheal tube, but I also wasn't able to move my legs the way I wanted them to. What you see in a movie is not what you see in reality. When you wake up from a coma, you wake up freely again. That's how movies mostly display it, but that's not the truth. Let me fill you in on my experience. Now, going into the coma, I was already skinny. having gone through chemo and cancer just 4 months earlier. But when I was finally able to look at myself again, I was in a state of sheer shock and disbelief. I basically looked like a skeleton, and I experienced anxiety attacks as I was afraid that whenever I would fall asleep, I would stop breathing. Most of my days after waking up seemed endless, as all I could possibly do was just lie there and wait for the day to end. I experienced myself rotting away. Physical therapy felt like hell. The feeling of grasping for air and choking while they sit you up was the worst feeling I ever experienced in my young years of living. However, my family supported me once again and reached out to me, never leaving my side and supporting me through every day, keeping me sane. This gave me the strength and stamina to realize one thing: if I can breathe, I'm still alive. I decided to fight hard and told myself that this was the last time I was going to climb the mountain to get back on top again. I barely had any energy to do so, and progress went slow, incredibly slow, that giving up seemed like the easiest option to choose. However, giving up is and always will be the easiest option to choose. Champions don't climb the mountain from choosing the easiest option. Michael Jordan did not win 6 championships without having shed blood, sweat, and tears. It's a long road filled with bumps and those annoying potholes that almost wreck your car every time you drive through them. On April 27, 2012, I was finally released from rehab with the ability to walk again, but of need of an oxygen tank for strenuous activities such as walking stairs or walking long distances. Now, need I remind you that all of this was only possible through one word: reach. About 3 weeks after I'd come home from all the strenuous hospital stays and intensive therapy sessions needed to improve my walking and breathing, it was struck down with the sudden loss of my motor control skills, incontinence, and bowel functions. My paralysis mystery had suddenly appeared into my life. Once again, I found myself in a similar surrounding, a rehabilitation center, and was yet transformed into having to live a new life. It took me a good couple of weeks to realize that this may very well be the way I have to live for the rest of my life, and that was completely and utterly devastating to me. I was given a large dose of cortisone for my inflammation in my back, and the side effects, as you can see, were clearly visible. I gained weight, lots of it, and on top of that, I had doctors doubting my days left on earth. They saw slim chances of me living much longer due to my condition of health and medical records. The doctors at the clinic weren't particularly happy having such a badly diagnosed handicapped patient at their center, and they made it very clear to me and my family of how little time I had left to live. My family and I had to fight our way through hospital bureaucracy just in order to get the needed care and knowledge of life in a wheelchair. I battled urine infections, manual bowel movements, catheterizing procedures, and of course my weak lung functions. I worked hard each and every day just to prove to the people who did not believe in me that I was not dead, but very much alive. My mother had to sell our house because it wasn't wheelchair friendly, to say the least. And so we had to move into a temporary apartment and motel until our new apartment was finished. It was during this time where I was introduced to one of the most interesting doctors I think I've ever met. And trust me when I say this, I've met many. It all happened because of my mother, who went out to dinner with her goddaughter, Yannick, who happens to work at a doctor's office in a town next to where I live. Once again, reach at its fullest display. Yannick had suggested for my mother to go to the doctor's office so that the doctor she works for can take a look at me and my case. I entered a world of healing and caring as the whole doctor's office took me under their wing. Although, like many other doctors, she had also doubted my days left on earth and gave me a percentage, 3 to 4% chance of living. But I don't do so well when it comes to numbers, because that's just what they are to me. They're just numbers, and I didn't care, because I wanted to live. Yannick has expanded my never-ending circle of reach by suggesting to go to physical therapy at her stepmother's practice. Voila, perfect example of reach. My physical therapist, Thomas, is always pushing me to my fullest potential and is never afraid to try out new things. And so I went from being this guy to being this guy.
So right, go back. Oké, jetzt ein Arm raus. Ja. Kom. Andere. Nochmal. Andere. Und wieder sitzen.
We all reach out in the smallest way. We reach out when we have a question or when we have an advice. But we also reach out during our darkest moments. The improbable effect that reach can have on us is tremendous. And the best part about it is that it surrounds us each and every day for the rest of our lives. Now, when you leave this room today, just ask yourself this one question. When things go bad or when things don't go the way they're supposed to, will you fall into the blackness below, or will you get up and reach? Thank you for listening.